Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Night's Light Astrology. Today we're going to be going over I guess you can call it the 4th of July conjunction. It's going to be on America's 250th anniversary. And when I first got into all this stuff, all of the placements, everything that's going on that day, I didn't realize exactly how many connections there are. And it's incredible. We're really going to go over it tonight, including a beautiful connection to the Roswell crash that happened, the Roswell alien crash, if you will, that happened back in 1947. And I don't know, I don't think that any other astrologers have noticed or made this connection, but it's actually a chart that I had up from a previous presentation that I did on just Uranus in Gemini in general. And since we're in that energy, I thought it was relevant to go over. Right now, we do see them talking about some type of alien release going on right now. We could even see that tomorrow morning. I know that we have the moon conjunct Aquarius, or conjunct, excuse me, I did that on Twitter too, conjunct Aquarius. The moon conjunct Pluto in Aquarius. It's pretty much exact right now, but it'll still be in the conjunction until the early hours of tomorrow morning, tomorrow being Friday, the 5th of June. And what's also interesting is we've got this interesting connection between just the 4th of July date in general, too, which is kind of one that'll come out of left field. So we'll go over that. And I think another thing which will be really fun for us to talk about is the Taurid meteor stream. And so this happens. It's named the Taurid meteor stream because it's a stream of meteors that we pass through twice a year, and it's named that because of the constellation of Taurus. So we pass through it twice a year because the opposition to Taurus is going to be Scorpio. So we pass through it. It's going to be this month actually, even though we're not in Taurus season. The alignment of astrology, tropical astrology, is going to be a little bit off versus like if you get through sidereal, which is going off of the actual placements and the drift accounting for all of that over the years. So that'll be interesting too, and that's just another thing that adds to this convergence. But what I would say is really just enjoy the next month or so, maybe even more like 3 weeks of peace in the world. It's been pretty slow news for a while. We just keep getting this back and forth on the Iran war and all that, but things are definitely going to heat up. I've been calling this for a while now the summer of disclosure, and maybe for, I don't know, 3 weeks to a month or something like that. Yeah, summer of disclosure, because it looks like they're getting ready to drop something on us. And another interesting thing is tomorrow, which is going to be Friday, the 5th of June, I believe that is when the, what is it, Disclosure Day movie by Steven Spielberg comes out as well. And I've been telling people they're not going to drop anything heavy on us until that movie comes out. So it would be interesting to see if they, because this has kind of been my thing, is when we're on this axis with the moon, when the moon is conjunct Pluto in Aquarius, we get these drops. And then when the moon is in that opposition to Leo, we also perhaps get the drops too. And we've seen that in the last 30 days with the last time, May 8th, V-Day, where the moon was conjunct Pluto in Aquarius. And then when the moon went into Leo in that opposition, where when we got these prior two drops of UFO stuff. Of course, it's nothing new. It's stuff that's already been out there and all that. But we may even see something more substantial come out, And another thing really with that is my whole thing is I think that we get these continual drops where the moon is in these signs until this event here that we're looking at, which is around the 4th of July. I won't say specifically the 4th of July, but around there. You can maybe give it a week or two in between because we're dealing with outer planets here. But that is definitely the trigger point that is coming on right now. And as far as the sky goes right now, oh, hey, what's up? What's up, Blurple Fairy? Good to see you. I know my bathroom right now, I've been talking about in other streams. Blurple Fairy said, loving the beard. My bathroom's going under construction right now. That was my Saturn square Venus moment right there, Venus in Cancer. And so I haven't been able to groom myself. I'm like, you know what? Let's just let it grow out. But Yeah, as far as the sky goes right now, the only thing I really saw that isn't a placement we've had for a few days or weeks or whatever like that is just that moon conjunct Pluto in Aquarius. So it's really gonna depend on where it lands in your chart and all that. But with Pluto, it deals with the underworld. It deals with, you could even say, let's look at that because Pluto, ruler of in modern astrology of Scorpio. So, in the Scorpio, it burrows and then it comes out. So it's about unearthing things, about things coming to the surface. It can be about shadow work and all those things. So those might be things and feelings that you see come up, and it's going to have that Aquarian lens on it. And we'll be having that for the next 20 years whenever the moon goes into Aquarius. At some point you kind of get that vibe. So there's a new relationship that we have with the Aquarian energy. But just to kind of give a little something there too. And we could pull a little card here. I got the Five of Pentacles here, if we can even get it to show all right. It's always kind of really reflecting. And with Five of Pentacles, it's two people who are outside of like a warm building, like a church more specifically even, and they're destitute, that kind of thing. So really what that tells me, just with this energy, and it's a card of like the material things too. And I would really, with the things we're going to go over in this stream, say, do we know, or do you know in your life the things that you have, the things that are important to you, what you're going to need going forward? That may be something that can come up today. And it really can be for the next like 2 days or so as well. Because I think it's going to be about Friday or Saturday night that we have the moon crossover into Pisces. But yeah, and I think that also adds in with what we've kind of been warning about, which may be what my next video is on, and that is Chiron in Taurus. And this is going to really be around what we see come up probably around this event here that really previews what we're dealing with next year, because we have Chiron retrograding out of Taurus. So we get a little bit of a preview over the summer here with that Chiron and what that's going to entail. And there will probably be some shock to the finance, to the things we have coming in. And it seems to be timed pretty well with the oil and the timing of when we're going to start to run short on oil because of everything that's going on in the Middle East. But yeah, let's get into the presentation here. All right, so we've got America's 250th, and I named this the Trinity Trigger, which is just so funny because for anyone who's been following the channel, I've done a series called the Trinity of Convergence. Oh, hey there, my mom in chat. I've been doing the Trinity of Convergence series, and this Trinity of Convergence series, it really dealt with the eschatologies, or the end times prophecies that are tied to each outer planet that has now changed signs all in the same year. And with that, each one is tied to a specific religion. So we had Uranus and Gemini tied to Protestantism, which you can call, like in its form now, evangelicalism or evangelism. And then Neptune and Aries tied to Islam. And then Pluto and Aquarius tied to Judaism and that kind of stuff. So, and there's also with that tie-in, there's some stuff with AI too. Really, you can kind of tie two of these to AI because Uranus and Gemini, that's going to be very technological. Same with Pluto and Aquarius too. But when you're getting into the religious side of AI and the rituals behind it, with that you see are being talked about in a lot of articles by the founders of these companies, that's where you're really dealing with the Pluto and Aquarius part of that. But yeah, the Trinity Trigger, because we're going to have all of these things that we've discussed on the channel here converging into a trigger point, into a shock that really comes through. Oh, hey, Art Genius, you. I think that's it might be a new name now, but I think that's Robin, right? Good to see you, Robin Dan, I think, right? So we got, July 4th, 2026, Mars conjunct Uranus at 4 degrees Gemini. And so this is going to depend on where you're at in the US and stuff. I looked at a couple different locations. So it's either going to be super late, right before midnight, or it's going to be, right after midnight, even all the way up until the early hours of the morning. It just depends on where you're at in the US. So, where you get that exact conjunction. But really, when you're dealing with an outer planet like this, I mean, something like this can take, it's not so much that it has to be when the conjunction is exact, but that's when we're going to see it exact. And sometime around then, we're going to see really something pop off. And we'll go into what those things are as well. Oh, let me go here. Oh, whoopsies. I'm like, I was on my wrong tab there. There we go. Okay, cool. All right. And then, yeah, so one trigger, three threads. So if you look at the chart here too, one of the things we have is I name these mini grand trines. People have different words for them, but that's really what I use for this is a mini grand trine, two sextiles and a trine. And that's going to be between Pluto and Aquarius, which we discussed, Neptune and Aries, and then Uranus conjunct Mars. Remember, this is on the 4th of July, guys. And that's going to be in Gemini here too. And this is going to be the first Mars conjunction, as far as I know, because Mars was like, it was way over here doing some action the last time that we had Uranus come into Gemini here. So this is our first Mars-Uranus conjunction in Gemini. So usually when you see that, you get that first thing. However, I would say that 2028, the Mars-Uranus conjunction, that's really the one where we're going to see I think we're going to see something bigger. It's going to be more chaotic. A lot of these energies are going to be more baked in, but there is a trigger point that comes in. So I'll read here. On July 4th, 2026, Mars meets Uranus at the exact same degree, 4 degrees Gemini, on America's 250th birthday. This is not a lone transit. The conjunction is wired into Pluto and Aquarius and Neptune and Aries at the same moment. Everything this channel has tracked since spring, the 3 outer planet shifts, braids together on a single day. Oh, good to see you, PMSO. Oh, hey, Sedona Angel. Good to see you there. Just check chat here. Oh, and speaking of which, let me get my other chats up here. There we go. They're over there. Yeah, so let's kind of get into what that's going to all entail. And then just looking at the degrees here, Sun at 12 degrees Cancer, Moon at 6 degrees Pisces, and we've got all the placements here for you to read. I won't go through line by line and read them all. But the interesting thing here is we've got Mercury 25 degree Cancer retrograde. So we'll be in that Mercury retrograde. We're also going to have before this, we'll have the full moon in Capricorn as well. And I have that on a slide here too. And I do a video, a collaboration with my colleague Esperanza Bense. And we'll really go deep into that full moon when we come up closer to that date, but I will touch on it a little bit because it's going to be tied in to this transit that we're going to see in this, as I'm calling it, the Trinity trigger. And then as well as that mini grand trine that we had between Mars conjunct Uranus, Neptune in Aries, and then Pluto in Aquarius there. There's also another one that we have that brings Jupiter into the mix here too. And so it's going to be Jupiter right here in Leo, and that's going to have that sextile over to Mars. It'll have just crossed into Leo as well. It's going to have the sextile that comes over here to Mars, conjunct Uranus, that conjunction that we're really looking at for this stream. That's going to be in sextile. And then you also have the sextile going up to Neptune in Aries, okay? And then with that will trine all the way over to Jupiter. It will still be in orb there. And so we get another one too. So we're bringing in that Leo energy into the mix and that Jupiterian energy too. And, in terms of the mundane charts, this deals with a lot of, this is going to deal with like the rulers, what's going on, people in power, that kind of thing. This could even be something like it could be a political assassination. It could be, I even think of when you're bringing Pluto into the mix here, because Pluto will be in opposition to Jupiter. You're also talking about like the death of the king. You know what I mean? That's kind of what's coming through for me. And so you want to keep an eye on Donald Trump, because we know for a lot of us have been watching his health recently, and it's not been looking good. And then if you look over here too, North Node at 1 degree Pisces, South Node at 1 degree Virgo. So they'll be in the last leg right there, the nodes before they shift over. And that south node, the energy of what we're leaving behind, that's going to be moving into Leo right there. And that will eventually cross Venus. It's going to eventually cross Jupiter. That's going to be much later, but there's going to be a connection during those times to what's going on around this time, which will just be like a couple weeks later here when that crosses from Virgo over in here. Now the nodes aren't showing, the south node specifically isn't showing on here, but the north node up here you can see right there. So they're always going to be opposing each other. Yeah, and then what we've got here, and this is something that if you look over here, I did post this just as a little preview for you guys on my YouTube. I just did a little YouTube post on that. And this is really, I mean, this is what we're really looking at in this stream. It's pretty incredible. And wait until we start to thread it into all that stuff. And do remember the placement. Which one was it again? The Mercury retrograde in Cancer. Remember that one, because we're going to bring that up later, because there's a really important connection with that. So Mars conjunct Uranus. Okay, exact conjunction. Orb of 20 minutes here, and that's the spark and the sudden shock. Uranus really deals with electricity, shock, disruption, those kind of things. It deals with the collective too, and then you're also having Aquarius that deals with the collector too. And we've got Pluto in Aquarius, and so these are going to be an aspect to one another. Now, these are considered to be positive aspects here, okay? But the disruption is what's going to make it seem negative. So I don't want to sound like I'm misunderstanding these aspects. There's like good that's going to come out of it. We may just not see it right away too, because it will be so disruptive. And we'll get into pretty soon here, like some of these predictions that I have around it. I think I threw together about like 5 or 6. Very difficult to predict things when you're dealing with Uranus, because it is all like Uranus in itself is already going to bring the disruption that kind of it usually comes out of nowhere. But when you have it in Gemini, it's the last thing that you're thinking about, because Gemini is dealing you've got the zodiac signs split between like 2 or 3 of them, different aspects of the mind. But in terms of the part of your mind that you're using every day for your everyday tasks that you're thinking with, just like your everyday thinking mind, that's Gemini. And so this is kind of where it comes in, where it's the thing that you aren't thinking about that really is the disruption that comes in. So on a mass scale, in a deep way tied to America's chart, that's like what we really need to look at. So the spark and the sudden shock. And then you have Mars trine Pluto. So this is going to deal with power. And this is more of like power of the people and not so much electricity power, but it's an Aquarius. So then you still bring that electricity in there. And then I'm reading a chat here from PMS. So when you talk about the death of a king, King Charles has retired officially. And, oh, really? And this has been recent that the announcement came about. Okay, yeah, because I didn't even know about that. I usually am pretty quick on stuff like that. Thanks for telling me about that. That's wild. King Charles, geez, that's something. Well, and then we all know the connection that, especially after what was it that they when they burned down the White House or whatever. I know people talk about some connection of that being when we started being, I guess, controlled or owned by the bankers, which by extension would be by England, So that's an interesting thing to throw in there too. So if he's, I guess, abdicating, so he's retiring or like abdicating, I guess it would be like the technical term for it. Do we know if there's anyone that's like stepping in? Is it just de facto going to be Prince William, I think, right? William's the eldest one. He's the least favored. I know that. Like people love Prince Harry a lot more than Prince William, but I think Prince William was the next in line, if I remember right. But yes, Mars trine Pluto. So yeah, power, and then there's the networks part of it too, and it's the masses. So you're dealing with all of that in that energy. And really, when we're talking about the masses, this is dealing more with the Aquarian energy, but that is where Pluto is right now. And so what are we going to see kind of come out of the masses? And this deals with like that underworld energy too. So we really got to look at that and how this can manifest. But when you got Uranus in the mix there, especially with that Mars, there is that violence that can come in. There's the action. There's also like the drive and all that. But and then so Mars sextile Neptune. And these are very tight orbs, guys, if you look at these two. Yeah, Prince William. Okay. And then, yeah, Mars sextile Neptune. That's dealing with the Neptune's dealing with ideology, oil, fog, and then like reveal. You can kind of say too, because it's dealing with the haze. But when you're bringing Mars into the mix, there it can reveal something that's been behind the scenes. So we can have some type of unveiling. This can definitely deal with the war in Iran, and it's become very obvious how much we're being lied to with the war in Iran, and so maybe we see something come up out around that, but these are just kind of some lighter things I'm talking about now, and then we'll get into some of the bigger predictions just as we're laying this out. And Pluto sextile Neptune, and this is the long structural current, okay? And really with that, the structure comes in because you also have Saturn that's in Aries. That's a part of this. So, and it's not conjunct or anything like that, but it is still in that same sign, and it's there for years. And you have to remember that Saturn met Neptune at 0 degrees Aries earlier, and that's what I've been calling the Great Conjunction of this year. So with that in there, for the next 3 years, essentially, I guess like 2.5 by now, we've got, and anytime you're dealing with the energy of Neptune, there is what's going on with Saturn there too behind the scenes, even though they split up. So there's a little bit of an easier way to differentiate reality from the fantasy, from the dream, from even illusion like that. And you've seen as Saturn has separated, that you've been able to really get that down. Oh, I just realized it's funny. And I noticed that this, I did fix it in my other charts. This is from something I posted though. So the astrology wheel is actually backwards, but for the other charts, the astrology wheel won't be backwards. So excuse that, guys. I know it is backwards right now. Um, and then, yeah, but long structural current. So these are just kind of a couple things with the aspects we can look at. And then I do have open here. Let me go to it right here. And I just have the actual chart open here so we can look at it. Now, for some reason, I wasn't getting the orb to make this orb wasn't matching up, probably because of my orb factor from Jupiter over here in that sextile that goes over to Uranus. I guess technically it's just out of orb by like 3 minutes or something, or 4 minutes, excuse me. So maybe that's why, but I even played around with it to get it within orb, and it just wasn't hooking. But I consider that to be a conjunction right there. So you also have this mini grand trine right here, and that's between Neptune, Jupiter, and Uranus, and then of course conjunct Mars. So Uranus and Mars there, and this is at noon, by the way. So you see the degrees have Mars has moved away from it. It's not in that exact conjunction anymore. We kind of discussed that, what the timing will be on that. And then you also have the other mini grand trine here: Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto right there. And then let's get back in here, though. We'll keep going. All right, so Mercury retrograde in Cancer. This is the one that really, and we're getting close to going into the shadow period here of Mercury. And the shadow period is going to be when Mercury moves into an area that is going to be retrograded back into. You're going to see it cross back over that area during the retrograde. That's called being in shadow. So we're getting close to being in that shadow period. I believe it's about midway through the month here, but I'll just read this really quick. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, so Mercury rules this entire conjunction. And Mercury is retrograde, stationed on June 30th, direct again July 20, or it will station on June 30th, excuse me, but direct again on July 24th, okay? And the planet of news, information, and networks is moving backwards through this 4th of July conjunction event, this Trinity trigger, I'm calling it. And so the signature for that, we get leaks, reversals, walkbacks, contested narratives, and you really won't be able to trust the first version of whatever story you hear around whatever this event is going to be. So that, and if I was an astrologer trying to, like a bad astrologer, or I guess to say a good astrologer, but an evil astrologer, trying to help out the people in power right now with how they're going to lay a new operation on us, this would be the perfect, not even just the fact that it's Mercury retrograde right now, but Mercury retrograde in Cancer. We are a Cancerian nation. Our sun is in Cancer, along with our Jupiter being in Cancer as well, as the U.S. chart. This is literally the perfect retrograde to redefine the nation with a disruptive event, with a shocking event, and then also be able to give out false information on that. And I would also say that from our last Mercury retrograde in Pisces, when you first saw the Iran lies really come through, it was like, whoa, they're just lying to our faces right now about what's going on. Because, I've been talking about it. We got our asses whooped there. We made a runway, like a little air base in there, and it got bombed. And then we got helicopter. They're essentially Black Hawks, but they're not like technically Black Hawks. They're similar to Black Hawks. We had those shot down. We had jets shot down. We had all these things. We had a pilot that got lost. And, and he had to like apparently he climbed like 4,000 feet up or something like that, like thousands of feet up, over the mountain and then waited and tucked himself in between rocks and was rescued. But we don't know the name of this pilot at all. That's being kept classified. They're not flaunting him out in front of us and being like, look, we saved this guy, no man left behind. So there's something going on there too. But that whole debacle that happened, just a complete disaster. And this happened under Mercury retrograde in Pisces, which is really the worst sign for Mercury to be retrograde in, because that's where you do get the deception, the delusions too around things that could happen. So you saw that with the people in power too. There was a delusion around what we could do in Iran. But yes, we're going to have this Mercury retrograde in Cancer here. And so this is really going to deal with the identity of our nation. And it's going to kind of be, they're going to try to base this on a lie. But the thing that we have working in our benefit is going to be the Jupiter in Leo there. That's going to be right. Like, I think that's a really good, because it really is about that authenticity and truth in a certain sense too. And I think that will really help with us. It would be even better if we had the South Node in Leo already. But essentially, with whatever is going to happen, and like I said, we'll get into some of these predictions here, know that what they're going to be telling you at first, just like, do not believe it, and it's going to be very obvious to those of us who pay attention to these kind of things that they're being lied to. And we've just been getting ready for this operation of whatever it is, especially around the alien disclosure stuff. But there's other things it could be too, because, they're going to drag that out as long as they can. But there is apparently something coming where it feels like they need to disclose. And so what is that thing, and you see all the elites kind of shuffling around, shifting things and all that, and in anticipation for something. All right, so yeah, America's founding chart, 250th birthday. We kind of went over this, the solar return, and then it's also the Uranus return too, because America was founded under Uranus and Gemini, and every war America has had has also been in Uranus and Gemini, every major war at least, I guess except for World War I. But when you're looking at Revolutionary War, the Civil War, World War II, these were all with Uranus and Gemini. And these aren't even the main transits that brought it on, I would argue, except for maybe with World War II, but that they were in play for that going on. Because for the Revolutionary War, I would say that's more of a Pluto and Aquarius thing that brought that on. And then for the Civil War, I would say that's more Neptune and Aries that brought that on, because it literally switched within like an hour of like Fort Sumter, or where they declared the Civil War open. Because I have that chart where they declare the Civil War open, and it's at 29 degrees. Neptune is at 29 degrees Pisces in like 57 minutes. It's just about to flip over when they open the war up. So yeah, so we've got that solar return. Transiting sun's going to be at 12 degrees Cancer, sitting on the U.S. sun at 13 degrees Cancer. So pretty much an exact solar return. Obviously, we get a little bit of that like drift that happens, and that's the 0.5. So it ends up like falling over into 12 degrees Cancer versus the 13 on the natal. And then Uranus returning. Now, this isn't going to be an exact, though, okay? But transiting Uranus, closing towards the U.S. natal Uranus, which is at 9 degree Gemini. And so you even have with this, it's I would say it's out of orb and everything, but Mars pretty quickly is going to pop over from that conjunction with transiting Uranus over to the natal Uranus of the U.S. chart. So that's something really interesting, and that's going to happen within, I don't know, within like a week or so of that. And that's, I also would say, when you're going to see these contestations in the news story, and then even a disruption around that as well, when you get that second conjunction of Mars Uranus to the natal chart. But yeah, then there's the 250-year anniversary. So Mars lights the founding era sky on the exact anniversary. The fuse meets the foundation. And then here's what we got for the build up too, okay? So we kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but we've got that full moon in Capricorn. Okay, and this is going to deal with government, institutions, structures, all that stuff. And this is 4 days before this comes on. And so this is why I say you can see this happen between within like a week. You get about a week or two, but it's usually in that week period before you pinpoint astrologically where the event is. So, full moon in Capricorn, we can see something else that comes on because there's going to be full moon is that releasing energy. So it's going to be releasing around that Capricornian energy of the institutions. And we've seen these institutions burning down. And that's been a big part of Saturn, which is the ruling planet of Capricorn, going into Aries there with that great conjunction that I mentioned earlier. And with that great conjunction, it was conjunct with Neptune, and Neptune is about dissolving things. So it's about the dissolving of the structures. You've been seeing that, and them getting ready for a new structure to come in, which deals a lot more with this Pluto and Aquarius, Uranus and Gemini, which is the tech oligarchy or technate. That they're really getting ready, and this so a lot of this deals with like, are we going to see the first steps of the control grid coming in too? We know it's been getting prepared behind behind the scenes, behind our backs, with the data centers and all these things. And why is it just so important for them to build all these data centers so fast? There's something that we're not being told, and we're going to get a much better idea around this time of what that is. But it's still not the full picture, because this is going to be tied to the Mars and, or I'm sorry, excuse me, the Venus and Mercury retrograde that happens after this in October. And remember at the beginning, I mentioned the Taurid meteor stream. Well, that's going to be happening. That actually might be happening on June 30th. I forget the exact day. I think it's like the 28th to the 30th is, I think, when it is. The Taurid meteor stream that comes in, named after the constellation of Taurus. But of course, we get that zodiacal drift. So we're seeing it more at at Cancer season, at the beginning of Cancer season, just because of zodiacal drift. But we're going to be in this Taurid meteor stream. So this brings in even, okay, could an object come that like hits Earth, or is a scare for what's coming? And I forget what that movie was called. It's more of a comedy, but where it's like Till the World Ends or something, where there's a meteor coming in, and it's a total comedy, all-star cast and everything, but they had some really weird hidden symbolism in it of just what happens when that. And I'm not saying it's the end of the world or anything, because that's something you need to watch out for under this energy. I've went over that in prior streams, people thinking it's the end times. We're coming in hot on that energy here, and we'll see it fully unlock over the next like 3 years. But anyway, with the Taurid meteor stream, we're going to have that during the Mercury retrograde here, the Taurid meteor stream. And then the next Mercury retrograde will be in the Taurid meteor stream again. Okay, and then and my prediction has been I think since about the end of last year, that when we get the Venus and Mercury retrograde in October, early October, that's when you're going to see there's something around the financial system. Okay, because we had the full moon in Taurus. My prediction for that was that there was going to be some type of introductory thing that's preparing for later in the year around October with the financial system. And we saw that they did an executive order that was about getting more clarity and essentially preparing for the end of the year with crypto, with fintech, financial technology. And that's really getting ready. I think it all plays into the control grid, but we see a major action around the control grid, a disruption, a violent event, something like that, that essentially gives them the right to start implementing the control grid. And that's going to be around that time of the 4th of July. So Jupiter enters Leo. And then we talked about that, but amplifier on. And yeah, I love that amplifier on, because I always say Jupiter is like the planet of too much, but it also, it expands things. It can amplify things. So whatever ignites gets broadcast loud. Spotlight, spectacle, the king. And so this is where it could be even something around Donald Trump, because if Donald Trump, dies or something like that, then what you would see is, of course, J.D. Vance would take over. Well, who was J.D. Vance backed by? Peter Thiel. this is the tech oligarchy. So if there's no safeguard for whatever you think about Trump, and I am no fan of the things Trump has been doing, he has at least been keeping somewhat of a leash on the tech Nate and the tech oligarchy. He's helping them prepare things and all that, but he's been keeping them at bay. Like that's not something that you really can deny. And I know that he's been doing a lot of tech stuff. It sounds like some kind of cope. I'm telling you, the second JD Vance gets in there, it accelerates more. So, and I'm not saying that like, oh, well, JD Vance was going to get it around this time, but I'm saying if that happens, like that would be the perfect time for them to start to implement the control grid. And then you've got the Mars conjunct Uranus, so yeah, so 11 p.m. Pacific time, and then I think this is under like Vegas transits and everything. When I looked under Washington D.C., which was actually this one, but this is noon, so it was later on. But I think it was about you had it like into like 3, 4 o'clock or something, early morning. Like it, so it really just depends on where you are in the U.S. And then that 3, 4 o'clock in the morning would have been on the 4th of July, to be specific. And then nodes hit the 0 degree threshold. And this is going to be on July 21st. So this is later in the month. And then that's where really we get that karmic axis dropping towards Leo. So this is the turning point that happens. And this is just a couple weeks after. And at that point, we are still going to have, actually, we might be out of the Mercury retrograde in Cancer at that point. But just an interesting to note, because that's where the nodes that we're going to see them start to flip over towards the end of July. All right, and then we got these 3 different threads. And so it's really good that I went over the, what is it called? The Trinity of Convergence here I was talking about, with these eschatologies all converging with these different end times prophecies, and which leaders we see in control that are getting ready for these things, because that's, it's going to really tie in to what we're going to see here. And I think it's going to be, you're going to see it come to the surface. You already kind of see that they're talking about, certain people are talking about, oh, well, the aliens are really just demons, and all this stuff are like angels. And I think there's something to be said there for sure. And there's a conversation you can have around that. But ultimately, what is this doing to our spirituality? And the big thing you want to look at is the alien god religion that they're really trying to implement. And I think that's why Peter Thiel is so big on his like Antichrist talks and trying to tether himself to the evangelicals and to even the Catholics and that whole community. It's Gen Z is in a huge wave as a part of that, but also I think they mean to try to spiritualize a lot of this stuff in a weird way that's not going to serve humanity. So what is Mars lighting? Uranus and Gemini. And so we kind of mentioned this earlier, but this is America in the founding too. But then this is like the Protestant American line, because I traced that Uranus Gemini all the way back to the Protestant Reformation. And that line went all the way through and into America. And you saw that. And then things like, say, even the Salem witch trials and things like that was Uranus and Gemini. And so, and that was another Protestant thing that came up, that just, it dealt with a lot of everyone thinking it's the end of the world, it's the end times and all that. So you see this thread, I could give more examples, but you see this thread that's running through this all the way. Uranus returns to its founding sign, the founding of America. We talked about that. And then also with all this rewiring we've seen in our own nervous systems, as everything has been crossing Uranus and Gemini for the first time in like 87 years here, or whatever. Excuse me. Yeah, 87 years, right? Or I don't even know. I'm like, got all these things in my head, excuse me. But you're seeing that we've had our nervous system being rewired as Pluto, or I'm not Pluto, excuse me, Venus and Mercury have been crossing Uranus and everything like that. Well, we're also going to see that how the country's nervous system has been rewired and then reborn with Mars coming in too and beginning that process of rebirth. And then Pluto and Aquarius, this is the underground current, okay? Underground current of the people too, Mars trines Pluto, power networks, the masses, technology, the world structural force surfacing. This is what I talk about, the AI stuff they're building behind the scenes, under the surface and all that. And I tied Pluto and Aquarius specifically to AI, but also to Judaic eschatology, okay? Judaic study of the end times, Judaic wanting to bring about the end times, and they have, a idea of this transgression. I forgot the exact term that we found out with it, but essentially sinning as much as possible to force the Messiah to come back. And you see this getting carried over in the papers with the AI people. You see it being carried over, that they're talking about opening up portals. All these people who run all these AI companies, they're all Jewish, okay? They're all Zionists. And yeah, they really want to summon something forward that's going to bring about the end times. And this gets into what's in eschatology, and this is shared between Islamic eschatology and Judaism eschatology, or Judaic eschatology, the Gog and Magog. And that's something that gets unleashed upon the world in the quote unquote end of days. And it's like I said, you have to be careful about people thinking it's the end of the world, but you have to realize these people are running on a script that they want to fulfill. Okay, so they are going to make this happen by any means necessary. And it's kind of like a Tower of Babel moment too, or Tower of Babel. But that's it. So it's less about us engaging with it in this way, with being like, oh my gosh, it is the end times, like, because the stuff is coming true from the Bible. It's like, well, we're fulfilling those things though, because we think that something is going to happen out of that, because we're trying to reunite with divinity, and we think to do that is to bring the Messiah back. And this gets into a whole long talk that you can have on all of these things. But and then Neptune and Aries. And this is like the Eastern prophecy, the studies, the Eastern studies and all that stuff, Eastern mysticism, even Islam. Mars sextiles Neptune, ideology, oil, war, in the unseen. So it's interesting that it rules oil, and then it also is dealing with the East, with Islam, when we get all of our oil from the people of who like are practicing this religion too. So these tie-ins are pretty incredible, and like I said, I've not seen any other astrologers come up with this, but this is just kind of going over the Trinity of Convergence thread here and how it's going to relate to what we're going to see around the 4th of July, what we'll see pop off here. And like I said, it's enjoy these next few weeks of calm, and kind of just get your ducks in a row, because we've been in the new world and everything like that. And us astrologers have been talking about that we really enter that back during February, March and all that. But it's there, and you can feel it. But now we're going to see it's going to go from feeling us being in the new world to seeing it in front of us. Okay. All right. Yep. So United States was born with Uranus and Gemini. Uranus is back there for the first time since World War II. Okay. That Gemini rules information, communication, the press, networks, we kind of went over all this, but the past Uranus and Gemini eras reshaped the nation. So we said this, I told you this before too, the Revolutionary War, that is, the Civil War, World War II. The cycle returns with Mars lighting it. And then we also get that play off of it as well in the prior ones. So, So on 250th, though, Founding Sky is reactivated and detonated by Mars. And then we got this underground current. We went over all of this. We'll I'll just scan this a little bit here. A clean channel into the deepest structural force of the era. Aquarian themes, this channel is followed. The long historical undercurrent, get a direct line from the trigger. And the full Aquarius stellium activations land on the winter windows. And remember what I said too, these are going to be winter windows. Well, for the full Aquarius stellium activations that we get out of a lot of prior charts that we've looked at, and that was these Pluto and Aquarius ones too, but then also just heavy Aquarian placements that we have, like say even when you're looking at the charts of Germany, which we went into recently, and their Aya predictions around that land at this time period. But before that winter window, that's when we kind of have that Mercury and Venus retrograde in Scorpio, and then that will cross over into Libra a little bit too. All right, and then Neptune, Aries, fog and fire planet opened by the trigger. Faith, oil, war, dissolution, the unseen made real. And we kind of just mentioned this too. The reveal and the illusion all at once. Okay, Aries, Eastern Horizon themes from Neptune. Work connects straight in. Prophecy, the long foretold, the veiled. Paired with Saturn, also in Aries, the structures and the dreams of an era are being rebuilt from zero. Okay. So we're gonna kind of get into let me have a sip of water here. I mentioned before we have the chart of Roswell, and I think you guys will be really interested to see the relations. The first relation that is so interesting with the chart of Roswell here is did you guys know that the Roswell event happened on the 4th of July? Yeah, it happened on the 4th of July, which is freaking crazy, okay? And then what you also have is there was also a Mercury retrograde in Cancer for the Roswell event. So we have a clear connection to Roswell, okay? Clear connection to Roswell with this 250th anniversary. Besides it being the 4th of July again, you've got Uranus and Gemini again. Mars was also in Gemini, not conjunct though, okay? Because Mars was a little bit later here. Or, I mean, Uranus was a little, well, Mars is actually around the same degree. It's going to be conjunct with the Roswell event. It's Uranus that's a little bit later in there, but they were both in that same sign too. There's like a duplicate Mars on this, so don't mind that. But, yeah, and then also with the Roswell event, you had the North Node in Gemini too. So the node's going to be getting hit really hard too by Uranus. And that's really going to bring there's some thread that's coming from Roswell into our 250th anniversary, and this is going to deal with whatever disclosure thing that they're getting ready for us, and this is why I've been saying the summer of disclosure. And I already felt that just from this event on an intuitive level, but I was shocked to find this out. But yeah, Mercury retrograde in Cancer during Roswell, and then also these same placements of Gemini here, Uranus and Mars in Gemini as well. So it's the Roswell chart's getting aspected hard. The America chart is getting aspected hard, but I'll go ahead and read this here. Oh, excuse me. In July 1947, Mars and Uranus were both in Gemini. Now, one Uranus cycle later, they return to Gemini and meet at the exact degree. Both fall on the same anchor, the July 4th weekend. Even the details echo. Mercury retrograde in Cancer in both charts. Sun in Cancer in both, of course, because it's on the July 4th for both of them. And Pluto at 12 degrees Leo over Roswell now sits at 5 degrees Aquarius. So not quite in full opposition yet. And this is where the whole idea of 2028 comes in, when it actually starts to come into orb. But they are on the axis. So it's on the opposite point of the axis with Pluto here. That's so important. So when you're Pluto and Aquarius are opposite signs, and when you're dealing, or I'm sorry, Aquarius and Leo are opposite signs, and then when you're dealing with Pluto there and that transit that it's taken, a good example of this would be every time, like we had Pluto conjunct Saturn during World War One, that really popped off World War One. And then you saw that when Pluto got into these squares, ever since then, every square it's hit since then has been some type of event that has been related to World War One that popped off. In, if I remember right, even World War Two there. And of course, we know how directly related World War Two was to World War One. And so now we over a few years ago, we had that Pluto Saturn conjunction that came in, and then I feel like that seeded something that we haven't quite seen yet. And of course, you get a couple of the Pluto-Saturn conjunctions, but it's more about like the square to the natal, where that comes in. So obviously you're always going to get those every 30, I think it's 36 years or so, that you get the Pluto-Saturn conjunction. So I don't want to sound like I'm reaching here, but you only get that conjunction one time, where it's actually going to square that conjunction that came in from from the Pluto Cancer that popped off from World War One, that started World War One. And so that's just an example that you can use here. So now we're at this opposition over here, Pluto, or I'm sorry, over here, Pluto and Aquarius from here. And then look at this too. This was actually, depending on how wide of an orb you use, this was a Pluto Saturn conjunction as well in Roswell. Okay. And now we don't have that conjunction going on right now or anything, but just important to note too. And we will, but so that's the kind of the whole thing too, is like, what are we going to see when we get this up here with Saturn coming all the way back around, which won't be for another, I don't know, like uh 32 years or so, coming over here to Aquarius and conjuncting Pluto, because by then, well, I guess, oh yeah, so we probably are, I guess we already had, yeah, we might actually miss that because it's in here for 20 years, so we won't even get that Saturn coming back around. But yeah. All right, and then every time Uranus hit Gemini, so American Revolution, the nation founded under Uranus and Gemini. And then this is 1775 to 1782. Yep, nation founding. We already went over this. The Civil War, and the country torn and remade. Communication and rail revolutionized. I would also say with all of these wars, you saw an increase in the technology of the weaponry. A lot of people will tie American Revolution and Civil War together and be like, oh, well, the weaponry was really the same. But no, it was muskets and in the American Revolution. And then they actually were using rifled weapons in the Civil War. That was where you saw the introduction of these weapons. And then you saw the introduction of new weapons in World War II. World War II, the atomic age, Roswell, the founding of Israel, the modern order. And this is where you get Bretton Woods too, our modern like banking system that we use now. So what are we going to see around that when we get these aspects to Neptune with what's dissolving and everything? This is what I've been talking about, which is the new, I guess you could say, like the AI technocracy financial system that comes in, where we allow the AI bubble to pop and traditional finance to crash through what's going to be happening with the oil, shift things into being more self-sustaining, which gets into us over the next couple of years really taking over the Western Hemisphere, annexing Canada, taking over Greenland. We already took Venezuela, taking over Mexico for the manufacturing ability. Of course, Canada is going to be for more fertilizer. Greenland's going to be for the rare earth minerals and all that. And then you've got some other South American countries that fall in, that aren't just, vassal states of ours, because most of them are ours, but the ones that we're going to need there. And this kind of creates the North American technate, which has been something they've had and been planning since, I believe it was the 1930s or 40s or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but I know that they've been planning the technate of North America for a long time. And so this plan is finally reaching its fruition here. And this is something that we're going to see over the next few years. I'm not saying this all comes in at once here, but and then now we've got the cycle returns, AI networks, disclosure, and the information war. So I'm hoping that what we see is not another increase in technology for devastation with weaponry. I'm hoping that the war just changes form and it becomes an information war. But you never really know. So, but I'm hoping it's more like that and not a bunch of death and destruction. But that's the kind of thing that you really have to be ready for. All right. And then the Civil War sky. So, yeah, we went over this before when we touched on the Civil War when I did the Neptune and Aries stream. But Neptune and Aries last cycle tracked the Civil War era. Financial upheaval, the greenback story, a nation split. The same Neptune signature returns now. And so and then that's just the Civil War. There's a financial thing there, but money system transitions. This was also happening during the Civil War. Cluster on these transits: currency, debt, who controls the rails too. And remember, during the Civil War, it was about the railways and who controls those rails. Okay, and yeah, you can get something similar, especially with Uranus and Gemini in the mix. Like, our new railways are actually planes. And we're seeing this increase of plane issues. That's the big prediction that not even just myself as an astrologer, but a lot of astrologers have, is that we're going to see people aren't really going to be flying as much. So does that mean another technology is coming in that's going to replace that? What form is this going to take? But it's chaos in the skies when you're looking at Uranus and Gemini. Yeah, and then the prophetic timeline. So this is where we got Neptune and Aries again, eschatological threads, the Eastern prophecy, long foretold figures. And so when I did my Uranus and Gemini, which was, or I'm sorry, my Neptune and Aries, Trinity of Convergence, which is part 2 of my series, this was talking about the predictions around the figures that are going to rise in the Middle East and get massive followings behind them. So this, I'm not saying that we're going to see this necessarily right then, but some type of event that can create the conditions for such a leader to rise over the next couple of years is something I think we'll see over this summer. Ride the Neptune and Aries cycle and the Pluto and Aquarius undercurrent, and so this has been brewing under the surface too. And so we're going to see that come forward. And so Edgar Casey is really the one who brought that up. So I thought I'd give him a mention here. Edgar Casey's readings flagged windows that overlap into the cycle, worth holding against the current sky. Oh, let me put that there. And the watch window. Okay, yeah. So Energies Live. Yeah, June 27th to July 10th, give or take. I'd say that's about right. You could even say like June 21st to like July 15th maybe. I'd give it a little bit more room to breathe, but this got a little stretched, I guess, but that's okay. But yeah, this is really where we get the watch window, and so this really just gets into the likelihood of what we're gonna see. Like this whole graph is showing like where the energy is peaking here and when it's dying down. So it doesn't mean we don't see these events over here or anything, but that's really where we're seeing these energies peak and just hit their crescendo, I should say. I've got a chat here from PMSO. Where is setting up a new app inside its own app on Ubering helicopters and and airplanes? Oh, that would be really cool. So are you saying that someone is setting up a new app for that? Like for hello? Oh, you're kind of asking where it's at. I know, like really, like give us something good. I bet the elites have an app like that, right? The conjunctions orb runs roughly June 27th to July 10th, peaking July 3rd and 4th. Mars Uranus correlates with a cluster. Sudden events, accidents, breakthroughs, surprise moves within that window. Not a single guaranteed headline on a single day. And that's the thing I want to stress, guys. I have predictions I can give. I already said Uranus makes it hard to predict these things, but we can see the quality of these things that are coming in, and any of these things that come in, they'd be related to any of the other predictions I give. And so they're good to all give together here. And I think they're coming up pretty soon here. I want to kind of stick to the presentation. If I don't, I'm like, if I don't stick to the presentation, guys, I just go off on a tangent. You guys see the tangents I can go off on. So I try to stick to the presentation, go to tangents, and it keeps me on track. And then, another thing too, we can look at, because I'll go over this with Esperanza when we do our full moon stream, but this is the chart for the full moon in Capricorn. So you got this with Neptune here too. So on top of what we've already been talking about with what the full moon in Capricorn is going to bring, you got this square by both the sun and moon here. Obviously, a full moon's always going to have the opposition between the sun and moon, but the sun and moon both squaring Neptune, which dissolves things. So we're going to have that dissolving the structures, okay? That's really, really important. So what structure is about to dissolve that we're going to really, and we may not even see it either right away. We've got this trine here. The mini grand trine is already going to be active right here. And that's what it says back here, is that we're already there with June 27th. Well, this is on June 29th here. I've got this placed in Washington, D.C. And so that mini grand trine between Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus is already going to be there. And then this is why it could be so like a little bit earlier than just the 4th of July, guys, because then you'll have Mars will have just moved into Gemini right there. And then it will already be in conjunction. It won't be exact yet, but it's already going to be in conjunction, already going to be forming. Because this trine that we have, this mini grand trine, it might even be active now as far as I know. I guess I could look back here, right? Is it right now? Not quite. Not quite yet, but I mean, we're going to have this, for quite some time. So I don't want to act like it's exclusive to it, but it's really where Mars comes in and lights the match on that. What's really important. And then also, at this point, we've got Chiron and Taurus too, which this is going to be key. The Chiron and Taurus, and what I've been saying about Chiron and Taurus here is it's about, us, because Taurus deals with your resources, okay? And there's also a self-worth thing that comes in here too, but you have to think of how many people have derived their self-worth off of their bank accounts, off of their resources they have available. This is why it's so important to own assets right now, because all of our, and actually I believe it's PMSO in chat here who taught me about this, but all of our server, like the server infrastructure for our financial system and our ledger is all in Ukraine, and it's all digital. It's deep underground, but this is where Pluto and Aquarius comes in too, and it's in play here with these energies, with the disruptive energy, with the shocks. Do we have, I don't even think it would be shielded properly from some type of solar event. There's so many things that can happen here, but like that is where it really comes in with that. And I don't think we're going to necessarily see that then, because this is the preview of Chiron and Taurus, but it's going to give us some like kind of shock around the stability of our financial system, of our resources as a nation, as individuals, and what we need to do moving forward. Okay. And so it's just, yeah, this is such a powerful full moon that's going to come in. And then right after it, we get this exact conjunction. We get Jupiter that goes into Leo. We're already in retrograde here too. And that retrograde it's on the other side of the axis of the moon when it's full. It's not in opposition to it, but that retrograde is also in play. So these are all really important things to note here too. And then as well, we've got the last solar eclipse that we had, and that's in Aquarius here. Okay, that last solar eclipse, and that was the 17th of February that we had that last solar eclipse. Okay, and the last lunar eclipse we had was the 3rd of March, and then that's over here in Virgo too, right as we're leaving the sign of Virgo. And so that's important as we hit these full moons, just to kind of have some play of the last eclipses that we had, because that is that background energy until we hit eclipse season. And eclipse season, guys, this is going to happen, and then eclipse season is then the like following month, later in August, like late August I believe is when eclipse season is. And so there's a lot. I mean, I even looked at my own chart for eclipse season, and it's something. I've got Uranus going to be directly on my midheaven for that eclipse. What else do I have? There were like quite a few things. There's something heavy going on with my 10th house, because my 10th house is Gem. Yeah, there's something is on my south node and part of fortune at the same time, which is in my 10th house. There's like just a lot going on that. So there even in my own life, there's some level of disruption I'm going to see, and there's some being like more visible too is a huge thing I'm getting on that. A change to my routines. There's some 6th house energy going on there too, because Aquarius is my 6th house, and I believe that this happens right between my if I remember right, it's happening between my moon and my Saturn. So there's like the career stuff again with Saturn in play. Just as an example though, So definitely take a look at your chart, or, book a reading with me and I'll take a look at it. Even my cheaper reading, my $25 reading where you can just ask a couple questions, I can look at that for you, but nightslight.co if you want to take a look. And yeah, here's our watch window. June 27th to July 10th, peaking on the 3rd and 4th of July. Yep, and then the surprise moves, breakthroughs, accidents, sudden events, all that. All right, and then so, archetype, not prophecy by date. Like this is, how to read this honestly, essentially. And this, I've been very upfront with you guys too. It's not so much this happens on one day, and I'm giving you options of these things, but we are going to see something interesting. We can feel everything coming to a head. So astrology reads the energy and the window, not a guaranteed headline or a guaranteed clock. Mars-Uranus reliability correlates with a cluster. Sudden disruptions, accidents, electrical and infrastructure events. Surprise military or tech moves, breakthroughs, protests. What it does not tell you which one, where, or whether any single name scenario manifests. So we watch the menu and the window, and we stay honest about what the sky can and can't say. So now we have the second peak of this stuff, which is going to be the 20th to the 21st. And so this is if we are able to see them hold it down, we can see it last out into the 20th, 21st. Like we might be able to. I have a hard time thinking they can hold down the energy until then, though. It just seems like everything is coming undone. The more they try to suppress everything, the more amplified it becomes. But I mean, I feel like this would be the latest they could hold off something happening. There's some big change, and it doesn't necessarily need to be violent, but there is that disruptive word I keep on using. So Jupiter is going to enter Leo on July 1st. Within 3 weeks, it's refiring the exact same three outer planets, and the conjunction lit on the 4th. And so you've got all these. So Jupiter opposite Pluto, that's going to be July 21st, when it's going to come into orb, and that's a pretty tight orb there, Jupiter trine Neptune, Jupiter sextile Uranus. So we talked about that. And then there was also the trine to Neptune, the sextile to Uranus, and then because it's like part of that mini grand trine. South Node enters Leo July 21st too. So at the same time the South Node enters Leo July 21st, you've got that Jupiter opposite Pluto. And then, of course, at that time, then we're actually entering Leo season. That's when you'll see us entering Leo season there. So that's going to be interesting too. So the sun will be also in play here, which will be crossing, and that will be a little bit just a little bit later, but not much later. So now we got the predictions here, guys, okay? Guys, I'm proud of myself. I'm really proud of myself. I'm getting through this pretty fast, okay? It's not going to be a 3-hour one like usual. Like, we've just got the predictions here, and then we're wrapping up, okay? I'm like really proud of myself here, because I would always try to get these to be really short, and then we'd be at like the 3-hour mark, and I'm like, oh, Lord. And I even did a bit of talking too, so. All right, so here we're going to go into these a little bit more in depth here, but then here are just some of the predictions that we're looking at. And we kind of mentioned a few of these already, but grid or network interruption. Grid and or network interruption, okay? Terror or false flag event or shock, shocking event. That's like terror event, false flag. Disclosure event, or even a sky event that gets towards disclosure. And that's why it's kind of important to look at Disclosure Day as a movie, just to study it and not really take in the weird subliminal messaging that they're going to put behind you. And let me actually open this up really quick. I want you guys to see the poster for Disclosure Day. Where is it? She's got the one. Here we go. Look at this. Oh, this one's blurry. Okay, well, we'll do this one. So a lot of people will look at that and be like, oh, like, look, a UFO around her eye. But you know what that is also? That's Saturn. So the whole idea of this is to give you an idea of disclosure. Okay, and it's in theaters on the 12th, so it's going to be next Friday, actually. Or like is it like Wednesday or something like that? I don't even, because what are we on? Like, I guess it would be Friday. But yeah, so there is something that's I'm thinking for people who go in and really just fully accept the energy of this movie. There's something coming in here that is meant to put a new structure on you. And that's where it gets into, like, you can't believe anything you're being told about the disclosure, about aliens, about whatever psychological operation they're going to be dropping on us tied in with aliens. Because like now they can tell us all of a sudden. It's just like they had their time. They could have told us back during like Obama, and we would have bought it. It's just too late now. I think people are too smart for this for the most part. But then you get into what this energy is bringing in, and the religious zealot energy that's going to come in. And then what are they going to give us around that? Because remember, Sedna is in the mix of all of this too. Sedna, the asteroid. And I'm not one to really these days be using asteroids a lot. I recently kind of shed using the asteroids, but I think with Sedna and the story having to do with the sea and everything, and what's lost at sea, what can like come up from the sea and all that, the water comes in. Neptune's in play too. The water comes into this, and saying, oh, we found something in the ocean that like gets to our origins of humanity, tying that to the alien stuff. But yeah, disclosure, sky anomaly. Then we're looking at market shock, excuse me. And then yeah, well, that's the thing. Yeah, it looks like a UFO, but then it also looks like Saturn too. So I'm like, okay, what is the Saturnian influence they're going to be encoding into this, as well as, of course, there's going to be the UFO thing. And what I do like with this too, what I really like with this is that it's almost like she's looking up at a UFO, and I don't know the contents of the movie yet or anything like that. It's the first movie I'm gonna go and see in theaters in, I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 years. I really don't go to theaters much to see movies, but I'll go and see this one and just to evaluate it. But the whole thing is like, how is this going to relate to what they put on us? Like, what are we going to see in the skies? We know about Project Blue Beam is what it was, I believe, right? Where they can even just project holograms into the sky. So there's something to be on the lookout for in terms of that. But yeah, market shock plus digital money step, and that's the whole thing. Is like, I'm with this one, it's like, perhaps. Well, any shock that's going to happen right now is going to create something in the markets, and then could there just be a manufactured? So much of the markets right now are manufactured. Right now, when I'm looking at I don't look at the stocks as much. I hear stuff like, a couple times a week about like where the stock market's at and all that, but I do keep an eye on the crypto markets, and it's just, well, we recently had like a little bit of a pullback. Everyone was acting like it was the end of the world. We were down like 5% for the day after like staying steady for weeks. It's like, are you new to crypto or something? I've been down 40% in a day and come back from that. Like, that's child's play. But so, like, when I'm looking at more of like something like that, more on the crypto side, though, you don't get as big of dips like that. But anyway, what I'm saying is this can be used to bring in another step for the digital money thing. And remember, I was able to tie this astrology of the 4th of July to what we've got going on. Excuse me. In October here. So there's that connection there, but is the connection just the event that happens that ushers that in towards October of us having, really starting to onboard people? And that doesn't mean everyone at once, but starting to onboard people in October into the new financial system. Or, there's some relationship there, but it's hard to put your fingers on. Uranus is going to be ruling cryptocurrency. That, as far as I've been able to tell, Uranus rules cryptocurrency. Now it's going to be still tied to the moon, like any currency is, to the moon cycles, moon aspects, that kind of stuff, full moons, new moons. But still, I've noticed that Uranus rules cryptocurrency, and it being in Gemini is supposed to be cryptocurrency doing well. We haven't quite seen that yet, and I think there has to be like kind of a whole thing that brings people on board, because we thought in the crypto community that more people would be coming on board, and I'm getting ready to reinvest in it because it's like, after what it's going through right now, these like little dips, I'm like, it's almost at the floor. It's almost time to throw some in. I don't want to be too late to throw some more in. But it did serve me well with when Trump got in, so at least I had that going for me. Aviation aerospace incident. We kind of mentioned this earlier. This is something that we're really already seeing with Uranus and Gemini. It's just stuff with aviation, stuff with even aerospace stuff. I feel like it's stuff we're not hearing about because we're seeing weird things in the sky and weird crashes. So there's like something aerospace going on, whether it's our stuff or whatever you want to say, aliens, if you believe in them. But whatever, sudden tech or AI rupture too. And this is the thing, it is a positive aspect. We could see this is where like this could be around the time where we get like AGI going forward. I know that phone companies have been working on phones that are completely AI, that are going to get rid of apps altogether. Everything is going to have like what would it call it? Like a GPT essentially. Everything's going to have an actual AI that you're using a lot more with it, and they're totally getting away from apps in general. And then you're like there's an AI app for everything new. And this is something that's coming on here. That's been getting developed. They're very public about this being developed, but people don't realize we're about to get hit with this. And so that's another thing that we could see around this time. Um, UFO disclosure too. I know we kind of mentioned that with like disclosure through a sky anomaly, but then also leak, declassification, exposure, that kind of stuff. Even something that they don't intend to, because remember, we are dealing with positive aspects here. It's just disruptive, so we have to be realistic about that. A shocking fall or exit. And then the shocking fall or exit can be, this could be around like us leaving Iran, or this could be like a fall in our power. We realize we're not as militarily as strong as we thought we were. This could even just be a world leader too. And this is what we talk about, death of a king type thing energy, you know. And Donald Trump viewing himself as a king these days. It could even be him. Could be something with him too. I do like that PMSO added though in chat here, added the thing with King Charles, because I did not know that. It's fresh news. So civil unrest flashpoint. Here's another thing. Yeah, the civil unrest flashpoint. I think we have. It might even be tomorrow that it starts. We have the trial of Carmelo Anthony in Austin. Carmelo, not and Austin, but Carmelo Anthony, who killed Austin Metcalf. And this was very clearly a racially motivated crime. So is this going to be something that gets amplified, especially when we have Leo, or Jupiter going to Leo here, and all this Leo energy that comes in? Is this going to be something that gets amplified as it drags on through the summer? They seem to have plans on, and notice, guys, they seem to have waited for the astrology to be good for this, because this happened a while ago. Notice these other things that are going on, other crimes that get committed that are very prolific crimes. They don't take nearly as long to hit trial, but this one, let's wait till the summer. Let's wait until, black people want to like burn down the city again, or something like that, like with what happened with George Floyd, and where these tension. And I'm not saying it was like there were things that happened with white people going into the city too, and all that. I'm not saying that, but really what I'm trying to get at is just there's like something that's going to set people off. And this is one of the things I do love about the black community, is how passionate they are, but that can cause things like we saw with George Floyd, and with the destruction that happened in the city of Minneapolis. But there's also the positive part, and I talked about this in chat with my friend who still lives in Minnesota, where I am from, a few streams back, is that there was a sense of unity for a lot of people that did come together in Minnesota too. So it's like these two sides of a thing, but the duality is what's really important to recognize here, because you are dealing with Gemini energy, which deals with the twins. Okay. And then an energy / oil / natural shock. Yeah, energy shock. And then this kind of gets back into lockdown energy stuff, where we could have energy lockdowns. We could have lockdowns due to danger from the sky event and the disclosure. And they're trying to push this narrative that the aliens are a threat to us and all that stuff. And I'm not someone to be like, oh no, man, it's all peace and love, man, and like the aliens are all great. Like I'm definitely not on that whole Piscean thing. That's the energy that we left behind. Look no further than David Wilcock's death to see what kind of Piscean energy we're leaving behind. He was someone who very much preached that. I mean, like that I guess he didn't like say all of them are our friends, but he was more of this openness with all that. So I don't think either one is the solution, the Aries energy or the Piscean energy of thinking like all these aliens are our enemy and they're a threat, or like all of them are our friends. Like somewhere in the middle is about where you want to have that at. And then also knowing what our government can put on us too. This is really important. Like what can they place in front of us to try to take away our freedoms? And this gets into Saturn in Aries as well. This is the control grid energy, and then it's a technological control grid when you're dealing with the Pluto in Aquarius. That's like the dark side of the technology, of the technology over the collective, and then advancing that technology through Uranus and Gemini and through a sudden disruptive event. So we got all those things hit. So grid and network interruption. Mars conjunct Uranus and Gemini, sudden electrical network shock, trine Pluto in Aquarius, the grid, the collective system. And remember, there's the Mercury retrograde in play, comms glitches, contested reports, that kind of thing. So like that's one of the highlights of a Mercury retrograde is obviously communication issues, But you also get what is it, tech glitches like that with Mercury retrograde. And I mean, I worked working. I was setting up new election systems. I think during the last two Mercury retrogrades for the election office, which I work at here and there. And that was the thing, is like we kept having these like weird issues that we shouldn't be having, even though we were testing out new systems. It was like systems that we already had in place weren't even working. And that just really gets into that the vibe of Mercury retrograde. We've got a chat here from PMSO. This is affecting the whole world, so it could be many things. Civil unrest could mean that there is celebration, and rest doesn't necessarily mean war or violence. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. And that's why I keep saying, like, hey guys, this is these most of these aspects we're looking at are positive aspects. So the only thing to really look at is that it's going to be disruptive in some type of way. But yeah, this can be people coming together, and I said that at the beginning too. Not that specifically, but just that what is Pluto and Aquarius going to look like? 'Cause there's a darker side to it, but then there's also a part of it that does deal with the collective, a rebirth of the collective, and a rebirth of them through technology. So and I also think when you have this Leo energy in the mix, that's and I said this earlier, our saving grace, that's where something good can come through it. That oppositional energy to all of that Leo energy is great because it shines that light of truth on a lot of things, that Christed light. I agree with you on the diversion of what it could be, but an energy, money is, oh yeah, yeah, money is energy, oil is energy, natural shock to wealth is also energy. I like that perspective, yeah. And that's the thing, maybe reevaluating our relationship with money itself, and understanding that it is just a relationship with energy. And so many people, that I'm sure we've all had conversations with people about money in general, if we're all awakened souls here watching and listening to this, about how money is energy, and then what is our money based off of? It's the petrodollar. It's based off of oil, and that oil is energy and all that. So if we get, and this has been a prediction I have for Uranus and Gemini specifically, a new energy type, a new energy form, what does that do to the money system? What does that do to the people in control? And this is where you can kind of look at that South Node in Leo, and moving away from rulers of stuff, because that's what you would have. You have all of these structures that are in place now, that have been in place since the last Uranus and Gemini, the Bretton Woods, the petrodollar. Even though the petrodollar was it came in more around like the time, it was Nixon's time period, but still, if you get my drift on that. Yeah, but surges in infrastructure failure, with the lights going out, the system going down. In Gemini, it strikes networks, data, and communication. And that's the thing, it could just be a totally new technology that's revolutionary that comes through. I want to stress that as a prediction. Like, we could be looking at something new, tech that connects us in new ways, that gives us different access to energy, that's just revolutionary. And then that's revolutionary energy. That's Aquarius. That's Uranus there. So it can be on the positive side of these things. I just want people to be prepared for this new thing we're moving into. And the trine to Pluto and Aquarius wires it straight into the grid and the collective machine. Of every like prediction here, this blends the symbolism and real world backdrop. So this is kind of like the first, like the most, I guess you could say most likely. I don't know though. I think it's a tie between two of them. It's like you get something like this that's kind of a good call, and it's less out there. But then you got the false flag one that kind of comes in too. But this, it's like PMSO was saying, this is a whole world thing too, because all the world moves with what happens in the U.S. So even if something happens in the U.S., it's going to affect the entire world. But then also just this transit in itself will affect so many different countries and their charts, because I mean, looking at all these different countries' charts that I've been looking at, there's a lot of them have either the Capricorn energy or the Aries energy or the Gemini energy, or I think I already said the Aquarian energy, but or like the Leo energy. You got all these energies in the mix here, so many that are big things and big aspects going on that we haven't seen. They're the first of these aspects to come on, even with the slower moving planets. So there's definitely something here that affects the whole world. But for a terra false flag thing, this is kind of what we've got going on. Signature of the abrupt Mars Uranus is the signature of the abrupt, violent, and unexpected, the event that arrives out of nowhere and changes the room. The near exact Neptune sextile layers in fog, deception, and the difficulty of seeing clearly, the conditions under which a contested narrative thrives. And then also, of course, Mercury retrograde all but guarantees the first version of the story won't be the final one. Watch the correction as much as the event. Falls on the 250th anniversary, maximum spotlight. And then story shifting with that Mercury retrograde in Cancer. And yeah, fog, deception, all kind of a part of this thing. The saving grace we have, as I keep mentioning, is that these Leo placements we have that's going to shine a light on. But these come later on. These come once Mercury's out of retrograde. So you just want to be careful with that kind of stuff. Then we've got the disclosure thing, and this could be like a sky anomaly or a disclosure of some type. This could even just come from openly disclosing and all that. But this one also has really good stuff behind it because we're seeing that the government actually get behind this now, and it seems like they're dropping something on us. So Mars, Uranus, and Gemini is the Roswell signature, the returning 79 years later on the same July 4th anchor. And then we've also got that same Mercury retrograde in Cancer as well that we had for the Roswell event as well. Uranus and Mars also, as I just said, in Gemini. We've got all of these incredible things that are aspecting and lighting up the Roswell chart. And there is a continuation or conclusion coming because we have the North Node in Gemini in the Roswell chart as well. And that's going to be getting heavily aspected around this time. It points to something sudden and unexplained overhead, or something long hidden surfacing. And you can make the argument long hidden since the Roswell event. And let me actually go back to the Roswell chart itself, the full version of the chart, because there is something else here that's very interesting. And I went over this before, but we just want to, Roswell incident, we just want to get back into it because the whole thing here with the Roswell event, so you've got the South Node right here in Sagittarius, and Sagittarius, there's another, I know I was talking about truth with Leo, but there's another aspect of truth, even higher truth, that is ruled by Sagittarius. And with the South Node there, it's like, we're going to put that off to the side for a little bit, so that's in play right there too. But then also Pluto in Leo here too, and so that's going to start getting hit, that Pluto in Leo, as we go further on. And get kind of out of all the fog and the chaos of whatever is brought on by this, especially if you get alien disclosure, that Pluto Leo, and it's even, it's a pretty loose conjunction there, not quite there, but it's there. What's going to happen to structures? What's going to happen to what was put under the surface? Because Leo also rules that aspect of truth. And then like leaders too, and like the leaders, this can be the leaders hiding things around the Roswell event, hiding technology and all that, because you've got on the axis, you got the moon over here in Aquarius too. So that's kind of in play there. But yeah, like what are the leaders hiding? What's going to come to the surface here? There is this undercurrent or underground aspect to it, and then even you don't have it from Pluto here, but you do have, I guess you could call that the conjunction, and then through that conjunction, you've got, because even if you give this a looser orb, like you'd only be giving it one extra degree, and then getting that over to Neptune here, that you would have both of these sextiling Neptune, and that's kind of the reasoning behind why this needs to be behind the veil, behind the fog, the thing that came out from the Roswell event. And then I think that was pretty much it. That's just like what I wanted to kind of really bring up with that, though. 2 tiers. Information coming to light is the grounded base case. A staged or genuine sky event is the bigger, bolder edge. And that's the thing. It's like it might not even be some sky event. It's tough to know what they're going to pull. But they're getting ready for something for sure in the sky. Or telling us about the sky at the very least. And then, like I said, this could even be something that comes from the ocean. We know about USOs, unidentified submerged objects or submergible objects. And that gets into Sedna, the asteroid, being in the mix here with all of this stuff in early Gemini. And then we've got market shock, a money system step. So we kind of went over these things. I elaborated, but I'll read through really quick. The chart reads volatility and a system in transition, more than a guaranteed crash on a single day, as I specified for you guys. So anchored to the cluster, not the fourth. The July 20 to 21st Jupiter-Pluto opposition is the heavyweight money and power signature, landing in the same window as the second peak. Pluto in Aquarius is the placement of restructured money rails, digital currency, a CBDC step, a reset of who controls the system. And this is why I brought up earlier the tech oligarchy, the technate. And I mean, could this be Trump dying or being ousted from power in some type of way? And then you get the tech bros that move in and take over the system, allow, we know if the financial system crashes, whether it's due to oil, which would be the most likely, the people that are going to get bailed out by the government, when you have the AI bubble pop and the financial system collapse, AI will get bailed out because they can set up the new financial system. And this is really what you see with Donald Trump. You can say a lot of things about him, but he definitely is not a fan of traditional finance, at least in the way that a lot of people make him out to be, because look at all like the debt that he has. You can see in the way that he has printed money in his time in that he like realizes how fake the money is, and he just doesn't give a fuck about it. And I on some level agree with that with him. Oh hey my brother, what's up, Gabe? Good to see you, man. But yeah, so that's another prediction that we're really dealing with, is like these tech bros coming in around the 4th of July, and then in some type of way, and then implementing the rails for this new financial system, which would be essentially in a much bigger step where people can on board or on rail to that around the October event of Mercury, which is ruling this chart, in a big way. Mercury and then Venus retrograde in Scorpio, which deals with finance as well. Scorpio and Taurus both dealing with finance. And as I said before, you saw during the Taurus new moon that they made that first step. They wrote that into law about getting this kind of stuff ready for what we're seeing come during all that oppositional energy. And then Venus also deals with money too, the planet that deals with money, and it's going to be retrograde in the opposing sign that deals with a different aspect of money, the more investment side of it, other people's money, other people's resources. And then here's some more things too, just more details on the ones we went over here for other calls. So Uranus rules the sky, Mars conjunct it. This is a sudden incident, near miss, or drone airspace event, or even aerospace event. Bridges into the disclosure call. And then a shocking fall. Mars, Uranus removes abruptly Jupiter opposite Pluto. So yeah, this can be the mighty fall, sudden death, resignation, or exposure of something that brings one of these things on. And so this gets back into, I mainly think of Trump with this, but this can be anywhere in the world, truly. And then you've got civil unrest, sudden uprising. Remember I brought up the Austin Metcalf trial that's starting, the black guy who stabbed the white dude down in Texas, I believe Frisco, Texas too. And then with the Capricorn full moon hitting institutions days before, a flashpoint at a high profile event. So what are we going to see happening at protests? There are going to be protests around this event. Do we see the start of like race wars? It's tough for me because I don't really see, I have a hard time picturing and envisioning a race war, but I had a hard time envisioning the race things that happened during COVID and during George Floyd. So it's kind of one of those things. You get into that energy of the summer, and then this kind of energy we're specifically looking at around the 4th of July, and all bets are off for people. They will be driven by the energies that are going on. It's those of us who really are more spiritual like this that can be there to just assist in whatever way we can think to and kind of bring the temperature down a little bit. But this is just the energy we're dealing with. Tech AI rupture. Mars Uranus is breakthrough as much as breakdown, and this gets into what PMSO has been saying in chat here too. Is like we can't just look at the bad stuff; it can be breakthrough as much as breakdown. Trine, and I remember I brought up those trines and the sextiles, the mini grand trine with all these planets in play. Pluto in Aquarius points at a major AI leap or an AI driven failure. Or AI leap, excuse me, or an AI driven failure or leak. So we see something around this time around AI. I brought up the phone stuff, how all the new phones that are coming in, they don't use apps anymore. We're moving away from apps. They'll have like a thing called legacy apps just for a couple models, so you can get used to using, but everything's going to be running on AI, on GPTs, on API, on that kind of stuff. And apps are gonna work in a much different way than we're used to. They've been preparing this for 2 years. This has been at the tech conferences. I have like one of the biggest, if not the biggest, tech conference that happens here in Vegas. I always freaking forget the name of it. Maybe someone in chat can tell me. But actually, if I remember right, I'm pretty sure it's going to be happening around this time. And I know it happens over the summer, where we have that big Vegas tech conference. I almost want to look it up here, but energy / natural shock. And so Neptune in Aries, we know Neptune rules oil, petroleum, that kind of stuff, fuel, even water. And then Aries is, of course, going to be like war and stuff, wars over oil, wars in the sea, wars in the water. We've seen that in the Strait of Hormuz, stuff that's been going on, the stuff that they're not lying to us about, of course, that is, like how the USS Lincoln got hit, and they tried to say it was a laundry fire. This, of course, happened under Mercury retrograde in Pisces, where I said, don't believe anything you're hearing. It's Mercury retrograde in its worst place. Already with a Mercury retrograde, you're dealing with issues with the communication, with deception, or not even so much deception, just communication issues. But in Pisces is going to rule that deception, that illusion, that fog, that mist, the fog of war even. So with the sextile Mars Uranus plus Uranus and sudden Earth events, a price spike or a natural jolt. So there's something around energy, and of course remember, I'm not saying all of these things will happen. These are just things that you can look out for. Any one of these things that happens can cause a chain reaction for all of these predictions to happen. Okay. So like I'll just read this here. I've kind of already excuse me, exemplified this, but or explain this. None of these are date stamped guarantees. The chart shows a loaded window and the kind of energy moving through it: sudden, electric, veiled, amplified. Two peaks define the shape. July 3rd and 4th is the ignition. July 20th to 21st is the amplified second strike through Jupiter. The honest read is the credible one. Name the menu, watch the window, and let the sky show which face it wears. All right, so, and it begins on the 4th, guys. Of course, if you ever want me to use astrology in this incredible way, I hope you got like value out of it. I was blowing my own mind as I did the research for this over the last week, especially that connection we saw to Roswell, which I will repeat for you really quick, that we have the same Uranus in Gemini, Mars in Gemini, that we had during the Roswell event, the Roswell crash of 1947 of the flying saucer, and then also a Mercury retrograde in Cancer. They also had that during Roswell. We're going to have that again here too. So there is this tie around disclosure, and of course why I've been calling this the summer of disclosure. But nightslight.co, if you ever want to do a reading, like I said, even just for this specific time coming up, I've got those cheaper $25 readings, and I can take a look at your chart for that and just do a smaller one just around what's coming up too. So don't ever think, I have a price range for everyone. Don't ever think it's out of bounds for you. I'll switch to the webcam here, but I just want to thank everyone for being here today and for listening to this, even if you're watching the replay or anything, giving it a listen and all of that, because this is just one of these predictions here that I think you'll see people start to talk about and hop on the bandwagon with a lot of these different predictions as we get closer to that event and as it becomes more obvious. But right now, we're in really chill energy. And so I wanted to get this out literally 1 month before, on the 4th of June here, and just start to get this out before people start really talking about it. And so you can hear a certain perspective on this, which is that connection to the Roswell event that I'm sure no other astrologers are going to really be talking about, this deep connection to the Roswell event and this level of completion it's bringing out around that event too. So, and that's one of just a few things. Of course, we went over how this is going to tie into religion, with my Trinity of Convergence series, and how the religion, with all these religions tied to a different outer planet, as they all switch signs, all of these religions are going to converge on one another when you have this disruption and presentation of something new that's going to be a shock to the belief systems. Because remember, we've got Neptune in play. This rules ideology, and this is going to be really like, when you're talking about ideology, you can be talking, of course, about the belief systems that are going with it. But then that also is what I've connected Islam, particularly as end times, to Neptune. So, and this is also connected with oil. You see kind of where that relationship comes in with oil, and all the people who are getting our oil from, for the most part, do observe Islam as a religion. Okay, and then with the Protestant stuff and the evangelicalism thread that we've got going on over here in America, and this new rise of Christianity, and what I predict in the next few years to be the takeover of the nation by Christian nationalism. This is where you have Uranus and Gemini in play. This is where you see the tech oligarchs here, the ones that are tethering themselves to the Christians, like Peter Thiel, like Palantir, and all that. Even though he kind of like fled a little bit to Argentina here, we'll kind of see what happens with that. But they've been making that move, and also, by the way, him fleeing to Argentina doesn't matter, because we're going to take over the Western Hemisphere. So what does it really matter, like where he's at? Like, it's all going to be part of America, if you really think about it, with the way these things are shifting. So, and this is something we see unfold over the next few years, but they're tying themselves to Christianity because it's part of the eschatology and the technological, the Protestant thing that's coming in, which I've tied to Uranus and Gemini, going back to the Protestant Reformation with Martin Luther and his 95 Theses that he nailed on the board. And this brought about the whole separation from the Catholic Church. Okay, and then, of course, lastly, Pluto in Aquarius, dealing with Judaism. And then, of course, most, if not all, of these CEOs that are running all these AI companies being Jewish, having this underground current of Jewish eschatology. This deals with the underground current when you're talking about Pluto and Aquarius, and then wanting to bring about, what Islam would call the Antichrist, what Judaism would call the Messiah, because it would be their Messiah, but to Christianity and Islam, it would technically be the Antichrist. In order to do that, releasing Gog and Magog, releasing a chaos on the world. They say that they are opening up portals. All these AI people, they say they're opening up portals to a different realm. Okay, well, where is this? What are these portals going to? Are these like demonic? You have to ask yourself all of these questions. They've said that it's literally to aliens. Well, there's your alien connection that comes in. And then all of this you can tie into CERN and Switzerland, and where is that energy going? That's even on a bigger scale, portals that are opening up. So these things are all connected, and I think we're going to see this come from the surface up in over the next 3 years. But this is our trigger point, 4th of July this year, around that time, of course. But I hope you guys have a good one. Thank you for tuning in. Like I said, nightslight.co if you want a reading, and then linktree/nightslight is going to have all my links. This is the first one that I streamed onto Rumble, the first one. So you can always feel free to go follow me over there, and I'll probably go back and upload some of my prior stuff onto Rumble as well over the week, as well as start getting shorts on there as well. But I hope everyone has a great Friday tomorrow, and has a great evening. I will be covering news tomorrow too, so pretty slow news week though, so I don't know, we'll kind of see. But take it easy, and thanks for stopping by.